Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Emily Cash with the FreightWaves Media Team, and I'm happy to present this webinar in partnership with Optum. Today, we will discuss how AI-driven strategies are reshaping the first and final mile, from real-time delivery optimization to intelligent pickup assignment, setting new standards for efficiency and reliability in the industry. I'm happy to be joined by Patrick Sugar, Executive Vice President of Operations at Saia, Howard Cochran, VP of Process Engineering and Continuous Improvement at Estes, Woody Lovelace, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Southeastern Freight Lines, Robert Rosales, Vice President of Information Technology at Oak Harbor Freight Lines, Webb Estes, President and CEO at Estes. He's going to be our moderator. And finally, Ravi Ahuja, CEO and founder at Optum, who will also be our moderator today as well. We'll also have a live Q&A following the discussion, so make sure you have your questions ready for our presenters. Before we get started, I'd like to cover just a couple of housekeeping items. First, if you have any issues during the webinar, please feel free to reach to our help section in your webinar console. If you have questions you'd like to ask our presenters, please enter those in the Q&A box in your console, and we will answer as many of those as possible during the live audience Q&A following discussion. And if you do have a specific question for our panelists, please detail the presenter's name and the question that you will be submitting. We'll also be sending a link to the recording of this webinar tomorrow in case you'd like to view it on demand or share with your colleagues. And at this point, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Ravi to kick off today's discussion.
Hi, Webb. Can you start the presentation?
Sure.
Yeah. Yes,
hi, everybody. Hey, I just want to say thank you to all the attendees today. We've got some great panelists going to have a really rich discussion over the next hour talking about pickup and delivery. P&D is a huge, big ticket item, and operating costs and efficiencies and service, next only to our line haul costs within the LTL industry. And so the questions we're asking today are, LTL companies, you're thinking through how to be more efficient, how to service your customers well. Lots of questions are going to be asked. I hope some of these questions that our attendees are thinking about, we'll tackle, but please ask any questions as well, and we'll try and handle as many as we can. But some of them that come to mind are, how can we bring more automation to P&D? How can we supplement human decision-making by letting the machine make more of the decisions faster and more efficiently? And then how can we reduce our P&D costs, as all of us are trying to be more efficient each day? But Robbie, before we get started, why don't we let each panel member introduce themselves?
Well, starting with you, Webb.
Hi, I'm Webb Estes. Oh, there, Robbie, there's your picture.
Sorry. Hold on.
There we go.
Start
hey,
with
everyone.
you. Yeah.
I'm Webb Estes, President and CEO of Estes Express Lines, and excited to be a part of this today.
Hello, I'm Ravi Ahuja, founder and CEO of Optum. I've been involved in developing technology for the last 20 years in the area of AI and optimization.
Patrick Sugar. I'm with Saia. I'm our EVP of operations, which basically is responsible for basically everything core operations here at Saia.
Woody?
Yeah, good afternoon. Woody Lovelace. I'm the Senior VP and CIO at Southeastern Freight Lines. 22 years at Southeastern, a 43-year veteran of the industry.
Robert?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. First of all, I want to say I'm honored to be here with you today and sharing the stage with distinguished leaders. My name is Robert Rosales, VP of Technology here at Oak Harbor Freight Lines. I've been in tech for 3 decades now, half of those spent here at Oak Harbor leading digital transformation and mentoring and coaching and that. And the other half working with Starbucks and Nintendo and improving their process with technology. I'm very excited to be here and looking forward to a discussion and contribution and learning at the same time.
Thank you, Robert. Howard?
Sure. Hey, thanks, Robbie. Thanks, Webb. Howard Cochran, been with Estes for a little over 13 years. Started in IT, moved into ops, currently in the leadership role there, where I spend a lot of time traveling the field, walking docks, and listening to people about how we can make things better. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Howard. All the panel members have been engaged in the journey of AI and optimization for the past many years. I have requested them, and they very kindly agreed to answer the questions. Some of the questions we are going to discuss in today's panel are: what are the key initiatives your organization has been engaged in to improve P&D operations, and how AI has played a role? The second question we're going to discuss is that what initiative that you have undertaken have created the most improvements in your P&D operations? What are the metrics that have improved and how? The third questions we have been discussing that what are the initiatives and strategies that have that went as planned, that did not go as planned, what were the obstacles? They were related to technology, processes, team adoption, change management, and how did you fix those? How did you course correct? What adjustment we have made? The fourth question I'm going to ask is that how do you plan to leverage AI and optimization and technology in the future to tackle the challenges that we'll be encountering in the past? This age of AI, open AI, and you're seeing the tremendous amount of revolution is taking place in this area. What are your, where is your corporations going? So these are the four questions on which these speakers are going to spend some time. And we see that question number 1 and 2, they're rather related. So I will request these speakers to cover question 1 and 2 one by one. I'll start with Patrick first, followed by Woody, and then by Robert, and then Howard. Patrick, would you like to answer our question number 1 and 2?
Yeah, sure. So question number 1 and 2 are really all about like kind of what initiatives got you to this place, right? And then how have you seen improvement in that area? And when I think of like kind of the journey we've had on the P&D side, and Webb set it up well with kind of an early conversation of how critical that P&D operation is, both from a cost perspective, but also from a customer facing side of things. And so when we think of like entire digital transformation here at Saia, a lot of us in the LTL side kind of started in the same place. A lot of kind of back end I-Series applications or kind of homegrown based systems that had been developed over the years, right? And so as we all have kind of gone through the journey, Saia certainly is in that boat, is we started this process modernization, but we were very purposeful to say, hey, let's be very clear about what we're trying to achieve and not just say lift and shift kind of applications completely over. And when we took this journey on, you had to make a very specific choice. Like there is an efficiency play that is at the core of everything we do, but optimization is the math problem that can be solved. Optum and the team here can solve it mathematically to a way that's far beyond what the human can actually accept. And actually apply into application. And so we chose very early on that, hey, look, everything we built was going to be around the service of the product. And so the product is very focused around in the way we use the product. And it also kind of goes into question number 2, the most significant improvements have been around the quality of our product. And what I mean by that is when you think of the P&D application, you're making commitments to the customer, whether that's an appointment or a pickup time that you have, and you're trying to create plans at the start of the day that are going to work for something that you don't even know is going to exist at 2, 3, or 4 p.m. And what we found is like on the P&D side, it all starts with that inbound planning process. And our planners, they were making this mental map in their mind. And that mental map often was really good. You have 20, 30-year routers in there, and that mental map's pretty solid. But every once in a while, it'd be slightly off. And so like as we started to apply kind of this decision support mechanism and broke down what used to be very static routes, stuff that said you're going to go to these 4 zip codes, and blurred those lines, we based the entire our kind of concept of how we would use the tool on how do you keep that promise to the customer of the appointment? How do you learn more about what the customer's requirements are so you get the right piece of equipment there? And then how do you make sure that you're there on time for the pickup so that that customer that's relying on you gets a trailer there that has the available capacity that meets the needs at the time of day. And that was really where we built, that's really where we focused kind of the implementation of this tool, was how do you maximize those outcomes. And certainly what we realized also is our planners and our dispatchers were spending a lot of time doing repetitive tasks, dragging and dropping or clicking items to a route that weren't really adding value to our customer or adding efficiency, rather than really what we wanted them doing, which is removing obstacles for our drivers or removing obstacles for the dock. And so what we've been able to do is take a lot of this AI or decision support and implement it into our planning and dispatch practice, where you're taking away kind of some of those repetitive tasks, and you're really speeding up their planning time. You're speeding up pickup assignment and generation. And what you're allowing to do is you're unlocking capacity to go solve problems. And that honestly is like where the bulk of our efficiency and, most importantly, kind of customer performance has gained in, is just building the time for our leaders to go do really what the core of their job is, which is go help our drivers, go help our dock teams be able to execute a plan that focuses on the customer. Don't spend all your time in route design. And so that's kind of like a little bit of the answer on kind of what our key initiative was and what we've seen from a success perspective. The only other thing I'd add very briefly is during this journey, we've also started a lot of new terminals, and we've opened a lot of new markets in effort to get closer to the customer. Old school routing is very difficult in that, because you'd have static zip codes and you don't have density. And so as you're growing up that density, being able to have dynamic based routes that aren't based on a static set of zip codes makes you not have to go back to route design every 2 weeks and say, hey, what has changed here because of the density I've created? Now the tool does that for our planners and our dispatchers, and able to create efficiency as you grow more and more with the customer base in a new market. So it's definitely aided in kind of the new market play that we've had as well.
Okay, so Patrick, has Saia gone from static routing to dynamic routing?
Yeah, across the bulk of our terminals, we have about 10% left that's still on this journey. Look, this is like a change management play. You're going to hear me talk about this in challenges later. But certainly it's been something that, like, it takes a lot of learning and understanding to unwind some of these routing decisions that have been made for decades. And you have to start really showing people raw customer metrics and showing them, hey, look, you're getting better for the customer when you allow the system to help aid you and free your time up to go solve problems.
Okay, as you have gone from static routing to dynamic routing, what benefits have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, the benefits are mostly in what we just talked about, which is like, hey, kind of density and changes happen within a territory. The tool's handling that for you. In addition to that, it just does more than the human can actually, like, look, if you had 1 million people go attack this problem every day, you'd probably be fine. But the reality is, most of our terminals, they'd set up static-based zip code routing, and then you'd look up 10 years later, and guess what? Those zip codes were very similar. And it took a lot of discipline to keep going back and checking that. This has taken that entire step of maintenance and maintaining route profiles kind of out of the game, because you're living in a dynamic world. That doesn't mean a driver's changing territories every day. A driver still is greatly anchored in the same locations, and that's some of, like, kind of the limiter we put on the optimization. But what it allows you to do is blur kind of the edges as density changes from day to day, which, hey, look, if you work with a lot of customers, that their volumes change from a Monday to a Tuesday to a Wednesday. And we certainly see that, and the tool helps with that management of day-to-day standard deviation and variations.
Okay, thanks, Patrick, for sharing your insights. Woody, would you like to share your thoughts about what Southeast Freight Line has done?
Sure. I'll try to sort of move on to a couple things that was important to us and not be redundant to some of the points that Patrick made, but a little history. We backed up, if you back up with Southeastern a ways, we had very much sort of that fuzzy zip routing, if you will, that served us well. We did have a progressive move a number of years ago to a route planner that we felt really good about, that we used, that moved us with some efficiencies forward for a number of years. But it leveled out. There wasn't improvements coming there. There wasn't enhancements coming there. So if I focus on our decision to move to Optum Route Max here, two big factors, and I'll say briefly, or make the point that if you look at our three big cost buckets of line haul and the dock and P&D has easily been the most dynamic space through the years. I mean, it has required rebuilds and change constantly. And probably it's the fact of, first of all, it's a lot of moving parts and a complex operation, but it's also customer facing. But a couple things really stood out for us to get better. And that was the tools we had did not tell us enough about customer specific requirements and characteristics. That was a hole in us getting better. The second was, if we've seen P&D get a lot more complex in the service offerings, the flexibility of those service offerings, the customer demands, but also equipment. If we go back a number of years ago where we were maybe loading a couple different size vans for P&D, where today, that can be a final mile truck, a straight truck, a 28-footer, the 40s, the 53s. The right equipment on the right routes is critical, right? And also those customer characteristics, their special holidays, their cut times by day of the week, are they appointment? Can you deliver to them without the customer being there? All those things were challenging us, which Route Max is dealing with for us. So it's two things. Not only are we seeing new efficiencies, we're seeing the opportunity of raising the bar on customer service. And last but certainly not least, is the quality of life for the people that's doing these jobs. The planner, the amount of time that it takes to do them, the quality of the plan they produce, and then good defined start and stop days for drivers. I mean, in the last 3 years, I guess we've gotten a little free from all the talk about driver shortages or employee shortages, period. But the time's coming, again. So again, being the quality of life and things for us has been very important in our decision to go down this path. Also, in the short term, in terms of, we implemented the Route Max solution last year in 23. And not only have we seen getting better and better maturity at it, but we've also seen very fast responses to the new ideas and the new challenges that we come up with on a day-to-day basis from Optum.
So is there any other initiative that you are engaged in addition to route optimization related to AI?
Pardon me, is there other areas of AI?
Yeah, AI. Is there any other AI technology you are using in pickup and delivery in addition to what you are doing in the area of route optimization? The one. Yeah, I started to say not Graham, but really in terms of also returning to the day, the interface to the dock, the idea of based on the freight, the contents of that trailer, suggesting to the driver the best door for the strip, looking at all the parameters, not only what owns that truck today, but we have volume loads. So, the volume loads, what historically has been on that truck, so that we can make the best suggestion on a door to reduce distances and space. And there's, therefore close times, outbound close times, velocity, and all those things. So that's something else that comes to mind. Okay. Thank you, Woody. Thanks a lot for the feedback. Robert?
Oh, hi, Ravi. Yes. Well, our journey to route optimization, it started with a vision, and the vision that we could do better. We could increase customer satisfaction. We could reduce costs. And so and if you're coming from a manual routing, this is probably not hard to do, but we can extend it even better. And so maximizing productivity means that we can also increase customer satisfaction by way of accurate ETA, reducing bringbacks, which also reduces costs because of the rehandling costs associated with that activity. That we can increase our ability for equipment utilization, again, reducing costs. And And all of these components of route optimization, such as those available with RouteMax, is sort of the catalyst for other improvements as well, right? It introduces visibility to our customer service, which reduces calls to them. Again, providing visibility to a wider audience. And so these are areas that we knew we would be able to do with AI. I mean, AI is about speed. So if you combine the route optimization with AI, it will ultimately enhance the speed and efficiency of P&D operations. And this is a journey. We're not done yet. And so we continue to evolve and continue to implement AI in the areas of automated billing, for instance, automated scheduling, those things that are complex, which AI is intended to do in a human-like capability, or even better than humans. So it's a process that we continue to be in for this year and years to come.
Okay, thank you, Robert. How about you are next?
Cool. Hey, so, the guys covered really the core elements here. What I would say is just a couple key metrics, and then because I get to go last and they covered all the cool stuff, I can take us maybe just in a little different direction as well. But returns, the number of returns are down, right? That's across the board. We're live in 160 terminals, got another 60 to do. Gate times, our drivers are getting out earlier than they were before. Missed appointments are way down. Miles per trip are down. Density per stop is up. So everything you'd want to see, and you're doing something right when you start seeing those metrics. So we know the tool works, right? I think another really cool thing for us is we got to use this as a bit of a springboard to test out some new architecture. So we had some pretty amazing collaboration going on between, you got to have a great product and a great partner, which we had, but you also have to have a great team, right? And so between it, whether it be planners, dock workers, drivers, IT, operations, really seeing the whole gang come together, I think was a big success and kind of shows us what we can do when we work together towards a common goal, right? And at the end of the day, our real goals were just to wow our customers and be efficient while we do that. But I think everything else was pretty well covered, Robbie.
Well, Howard, Robbie, let me step in for a second. Howard, you made that sound really pretty. But I've also been here at 8 o'clock at night and seen your car still here too. So clearly we've been very pleased with the results. And I love how you called out some of the ones that people don't think about as often, like return shipments and all of those costs. But 160 terminals was not by accident. I mean, it was a lot of hard work. Howard, can you walk through what went well and then what didn't go well, and where were the spots where you kind of had to guide the team to kind of get through those hurdles and even make improvements to the system to get there? What'd you do?
Yeah, great. So one, I listened a lot, right? So we put together focus groups, and those focus groups were comprised of the people who are going to use the product, which is where their truth always is, right? It's not from me. We got to talk to the people using it. And so we did proof of concepts and pilots, and with those, we did a soft go live. Had a good story there, good success, but we also got a lot of enhancements. So we pushed those back to the Optum team. They were really quick to turn some of those things around. As we were reworking our architecture, and we're trying to move pretty fast, we hit some bottlenecks on the throughput. And so we had designed the rollout in such a way that we were expecting some of this so we could keep rolling out before we hit our tipping point. And we did that by pushing and seeding all the terminals with their data well in advance of their go live days. So we knew where our tipping point was very early in this just by continuing the push, and then we pulled that data back to keep it going live. Some of the real challenges, and someone mentioned this earlier, I think it was Patrick and a couple of the others, change is hard, right? So we're going to a planner who kind of gets, and they've got a lot of pride in what they do, and they say, hey, no one builds a better route than me, Howard. No, I don't care what AI you have. I don't care if it's Terminator. I don't care, right? No one's going to build it better than me. and they made their living and made their name doing that, right? And so when you bring in the system, and it's got really cool. It's got the metrics at the bottom, so you can actually see the dollars changing if you're tinkering with the routes. And they hit that realization of, wait, maybe this computer is smarter than me. How do I start to redefine what my value is to the company, right? Because not saying I'm being replaced by this, but I don't need to be planning in here for 6 hours anymore. So, but what we love about that, and what they're starting to love too, is that gives them a chance to see the execution through. So now, instead of being stuck in an office or on a dock stand looking at a computer screen all evening into the wee hours, they can actually walk around and make sure that the plan's being executed. So that was a pretty good pivot. The drivers, you know, Patrick, I heard you say you kind of kept their territories basically pretty similar, right? Not exactly the same, but we were a little more aggressive. And so our philosophy is, our customers love our drivers, and so if more customers get to see more drivers, it kind of completes more of a rounded experience, and they understand that it's not just my driver that's good; it's that the Estes drivers are good, and we're building that culture of, hey, all my Estes drivers that show up are good, and also that allows them to get a little more flexibility. Say they want to leave at 7 a.m. because they've got something to do with their kids in the afternoon. We can put them on a route at 7 a.m. that they may run a different territory, but it helps meet their needs as a person in terms of that work-life balance, which a lot of times, if you're stuck in the territory, that's your territory, good and bad, right? So in the efficiencies there, it's a little bit easier to manage, but that created a lot of discussion. And the way we had to get in front of it was by explaining and really pushing for our TMs to explain why we're doing this and the value they get, as well as the value the customer gets out of this. Some changes on the dock too. We have some challenges there. You know, making sure that you're loading that freight the way the plan recommends it, so that the driver has a great experience and doesn't have to work around freight. That's a big deal too. So those were some of the main things. You know, I would say architecture, change management was a big one, and then just the speed. We were rolling out fast, and we had about 8 great people from the engineering team, and some from our compliance team, and some from IT, and traveling a lot, right? And doing some big remote rollouts, but it was a great success story.
Howard, it sounds like your boss was kind of a jerk and said, "This thing is working so well, go put in all of them tomorrow." Sounds
Well,
like
I had a bet with my boss I could get it done by January 1st, and I lost. So now I got to come up with a new bet. So, but yeah, I almost got it.
Good answers. Hey, Robert, any other additional things that you saw that were obstacles for you?
You know, well, it's not uncommon to run into several challenges when you're implementing a game changer application, right? Such as route optimization. So the 2 things that stood out with me is the integration and the culture. You know, though, when you talk about integration, there's the technical integration and the data integration. So for the technical integration, that's just about engineering. It's about moving data from one system to the other. And for a company like us with, you know, small IT team, it is important to partner with a company such as Optum and RouteMax, because their technical team actually becomes a part of your technical team, right? And they're very capable, highly responsive. So between our internal team and their team, the problem of moving data from one system to another is just a matter of engineering. The other part is the data. That's a lot harder, and I think Howard touched on this a little bit, is data cleanliness is hard because it's everybody's responsibility to make sure that the data is clean and everybody understands the data element that makes a good route, optimized route. You know, things like customer profile, like liftgate, delivery window, right? Those things. When is somebody doing inventory and they're closed for the day? Things like that will make a big difference when you're doing optimizing routes. So those, to me, those are the big challenge. The other part, which is, and Howard touched on this a little bit, is the culture of change management, right? Everybody is the best router, but you know, you gotta change the mind from being resistance to open to possibilities. And that's really hard to do. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of demo, takes a lot of convincing to make sure that everybody is on board with where the vision is going.
Actually, I remember a quote. Someone asked an AI expert that will AI replace humans? The answers came, AI will not replace humans, but humans leveraging AI will replace humans not leveraging AI. So I think we live in an age, we all have to learn AI in order to stay relevant. So AI working with humans is going to run the operations for the next, I would say 10 to 20 years. Thank you. So I would say, Woody would like to share what challenges you faced and how did you overcome them?
You know, I think, and I would put it in the category of sort of the maturity side. It's redundant a little bit to Howard's point about, and Robert's for that matter, about planners having a lot of confidence in the work they've done and their institutional knowledge or their tribe knowledge of that local service center. It is, you know, that's a challenge. Even more so, I think, is the senior driver that has run that route or similar route for 20 years and knows every pothole in the road, so to speak. And the beauty of one of the things we found within RouteMax has helped quite a bit is, and Howard hit on it briefly there, is about the fact that you can see the impact of your decisions interactively. In other words, the things you think you're doing that's improving things to meet the needs or build that maximum route, can see the cost of the miles, the cost of the time, and those things as you make the decisions. And then over and above that, the ability to take at the end of the day or whatever period of time you choose to look at the plan to actual. Here's what was supposed to happen, what really happened, and when I say, and that's other good tools that we have within the RouteMax environment. I think that ultimately it is shifting because the reality of a shorter day, maximizing your stops within a given window successfully, not having returns, is having a good workload coming back from being in the right place to start your pickups with your anchors and things like that is just bringing down a lot of the walls in terms of the pushback that we're seeing.
Good. Patrick, so can you share, you have been one of the earliest adopter of RouteMax. Can you please share your challenges?
Yeah, I have one extra. I think the group talked well about these, like of kind of around the culture, the management, and I think like one of the ways that we helped on framing that, because this was, of course, it's change management. It's a big change, but this idea of it's like my route versus the computer's route, we tried to break very early on, right? Like this is no different than whatever historical tool you use that gave you a starting point. It's a starting point. There still requires knowledge and complexity and understanding. What does this bridge do to my route today? What is that 10-year driver that understands characteristics of how something that's outside of the control of the computer impacts it? And so like we talked about it a ton as a starting point. And I think that really helped us with that change management side. But I think like one of the biggest change management challenges that we had really generated because we were developing a lot of this as we went. And I can't give Optum more credit on this, of when you're developing something like this, you need a partner that can listen really well and can help you and challenge you when they need to. And that's certainly what Optum's provided throughout this. But I think the biggest issue we had is you get fancy UX, and that's often the win for the end user, right? They're moving from maybe some green screen or an antiquated Windows-based system or something that is you're leaving for a reason. And their win that they can knowledgeably like put their hands around is around really cool and slick UX. And so one of the biggest change management items we needed to do was make sure, like, rather than roll the UX and then optimization gets developed and now you try to roll optimization, that caused us a bunch of issues. And so, like, it needs to bundle that the optimization or the AI is just part of the flow of their day. And I think that was like a big time that our change management changed when we stopped rolling it in waves that said, here's your new system, then here's this optimization thing that you should use. No, here's the new system, here's how it works. And yeah, sure, AI is a part of that. No different than your old system had whatever it was your starting point that created it. And so I think that was an important part, is like, hey, when you're going to roll this out, roll it all together so that your user's not thinking of it as like this AI battle and this UX battle. Is like, hey, it's all one thing, and this is how the tool works. And use it to help you, but ultimately you're in charge, and you still rule the day with your understanding and your deep expertise, because that's always and your relationship with the customer, because that's always going to win at the end of the day.
Okay, wonderful. Actually, there are quite a bit of questions coming from the audience. So
Robbie, they're killing it. These questions are awesome. Can I, before we do question 4, can I do some quick questions, like 10 seconds?
Yes, please.
So
yes, please.
Anyone can answer. How long does it take to plan a 30 driver terminal? So, like, how much time would a planner take, and how much did it take beforehand?
Howard?
For us, Webb, it's time's drastically reduced. It's hard for me to think about 30 driver. If you give me bill count, it'd be an easier one. But yeah, same thing. You can get a rough plan in about 30 minutes, honestly. Now, how much tinkering do you need to do, et cetera? Probably not a whole lot, but you can get a great plan in about an hour of work. What I would encourage people to remember is, I think Patrick hit on this early, or someone did, maybe it was Woody, that freight is coming in all the time to these terminals, right? Your inbound is everyone else's outbound that's arriving. So your plan is in flux, right? We talked about that dynamic plan. So you got to go back in and look at it again later. But if you pick the right freight for it, I think an hour and you're good to go on the terminal that size.
That's good. And compared to the 5 hours before, Howard.
Oh yeah, brutal. Yeah.
Okay, so somebody else. Go for it.
I'm sorry about that, Webb. I think this would be a good time. It's not directly to the question, but it's a functionality that I think would be good to understand when it comes down to getting new information into the ability to put your plan, is the fact that it allows layered routing. Layered planning that we're using real successfully, especially at larger service centers, that breaks down this job. We can take and separately optimize final mile, or we could separately optimize volume, or we can take certain characteristics of requirements and do those, so that it's not one plan. Those planners may complete these in waves. Therefore, you're essentially achieving some of the hard pieces earlier than you would otherwise, and then you can do the core at the end. And that's been very valuable with multiple planners at a large facility.
I love that, Woody. Spot on. Sometimes your box trucks, you want to get them out there early, and a lot of it's been trapped from the day before, so you can kind of build a plan and get them going faster. That's good. So another question that popped up: how often do your drivers actually follow the plan? What's your level of drivers doing what you loaded them to do? Patrick?
You don't call the public guy for this. I'm not going to give you a percentage. I think I won't give you a percentage, but I will say, like, the cool part is there's built-in functionality of this. And one of the coolest things, someone brought it up earlier, but I don't think, like, people that don't use this tool don't see it. One of the coolest things is the tools it's been built in a way that it constantly coaches whoever is the end user. So if a driver does override, they get a real time, I always call it like the defense of the system, right? So the system says, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, it may save you 10 minutes, but you're going to miss 2 appointments. Or, hey, you're going to add 10 minutes. So you're giving that real time feedback to the driver. And then on the back end, there's obviously a bunch of compliance reporting that shows you, hey, here's your percentage of optimized overrides. And then one of the coolest little features in this thing is you've all had it that somebody calls and they say, I have to be the next stop. I had something emergency that came up, something happened. There's a really cool little feature in dispatch that allows the dispatcher to lock the next stop. And that whole idea is that urgent customer, there's something that you say, hey, I know that we giving you the opportunity to override stuff, trying to coach you away from it, but you got to go here next. And so a couple little pieces of that, not the exact answer, but gives you a little guide around how we manage it.
Actually, well, there's an excellent question which came. It says, what criteria did you consider when deciding to go with a third-party solution versus building one in-house? I think that the web Estes in the best question to answer that.
Robbie, I was about to, that was my next question. I was going to have to look myself in the mirror. That was one of the to Robbie's question was in-house build versus buy from the outside. And we built our own, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago, and call it pride, we know what we're doing. And we spent a lot of money and we got it up and it was okay. But Robbie, one of the things that I came to learn in building that system is things are changing so quickly. I thought I could put a team on it for 2 years, have a finished product, and then leave it on the sideline for 5 years and then come back to it later. And I realized by the time I was done, I had to keep working on it because all the things were changing, the amount of data and the amount of AI capabilities. And so honestly, the reason for us to pivot towards a purchase of an outside product was our belief that the pickup and delivery efficiencies were going to need to get better and better day in and day out. And Robbie, one of the questions on there actually asked, what about AI on pickups? And I won't go into all of Optum's solutions around that, but there are some really cool things where Optum's able to look at that and start to predict what pickups you're going to have in future days and where you're going to need your drivers to be. And Patrick, you were talking about how, the inbound supervisor thinks that they're brilliant, right? And like, hey, I know what I'm doing. One thing I can tell you inbound supervisors don't know is anything having to do with pickups, right? They're at home sleeping by the time those pickups are coming in. And so we got really excited about partnering with a company that was going to continue to add enhancements. And one of the big ones was the pickups and leveraging AI on that. So big deal for us.
One thing I'd add, Webb, and I think Robert and Woody and Patrick will all agree, this system is super intuitive, right? So we're not spending weeks of training to learn the system. It's kind of self-teaching, right? I think we had a total of 1 hour of videos and then a 1 hour session. And then the system also has the ability to run different types of scenarios. So we could actually send our planners in before we went live and let them run both plans. And we gave them a lot of freedom to do that. So a lot of ease of use and kind of self-teaching pieces are built into the system.
Actually, there's a question came from FedEx. How was the system able to manage sudden spikes in volume? Like, for example, after a long weekend, the volume is more. How important was to having a buffer number of vehicles drivers? Patrick?
What was the end of that question? How important for what?
How important was having a buffer number of vehicles / drivers?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Look, I mean, I think like we all, this is all on the top of our minds right now after we've experienced the first 21 days of January this year, certainly. And we've seen the weather do what the weather does some years. And so certainly you see this, right? I think like any inbound plan, what this does better than a traditional inbound planning tool, right, is a lot of times you would have locked route structures in the past, right? And so all that happens when you have more density, right? This should be an opportunity to be more efficient and to be more capable of having a better plan for your day when that comes in. And in our old system, what it would do is it would basically just crowd a route. Is how that's not the technical term. I'm not the CIO on the panel here. So that's the non-technical way of saying it would just throw a bunch of stops in one route. And then that planner was kind of waving them. Maybe it was time-based. Maybe hopefully it was area-based in density, but you couldn't really rely on that because it was often done on, like I said, a mental map or a mental image. And so using this tool has allowed you to basically play off that density and utilize that density. So sure, you're still having to make a call on what's available. And we tend to think at Saia, certainly like this investment in equipment and drivers, like it better be sitting there. Like there are pillars of capacity that exist that are people, doors, and equipment. And certainly technology helps on those, but if you don't have those available, you're just not going to serve the customer well. And that really comes out when you have events like this, right? And so sure, is there excess, would you call it? I don't know if I'd go that far, but there's a buffer number that says, hey, we need to be able to have this level of capacity. So if I need to, I can step up. But as much as I can do to make myself more efficient and play off that density, the much less I don't have to keep too much of a buffer, right, on that side of things. But certainly there's a play of having those extra available equipment there so that you can be able to benefit off that when you need to. And look, that's on the trailer side as well. And there certainly has been some technology integrations we've done between Optum and our trailer world of making sure we have available capacity for customers.
Okay, very good.
And Robbie,
Can
I
I
add, Patrick,
Yes.
really good points that there's a pallets per route. So you can adjust that, right? So I think you said it was FedEx who was asking that question. So if you find yourself in that situation where you have a lot of freight, you may up that to whatever you think you can handle, right? 14 maybe it's 12, maybe it's 10, whatever the magic number is for you. You can adjust that. You can also adjust the empty time on the tool. So, hey, I expect this driver to be finished by 3, so I can give him some more and maybe still catch all my pickups, right? So there's a balance, and those are tweaks you can do on a daily basis for any given plan to help adjust with that flux in the freight.
I think one cool thing too is like what we've seen, right? So like use the Houston example from yesterday, right? Where weather starts coming in late in the day. It allows you to say, hey, how do you want to leverage your day? I need people in the pickup window earlier, and that pickup window earlier, knowing that weather is going to be coming. And so you're able to adjust that empty time. That's a great call, Howard. And like play around some of the disruptions that exist.
Very good. Actually, in the interest of time, may I request you to give your answers very briefly? There are a few questions came. Question from Edui Pile. Knowing that the LTL systems require tightly coupled integrations between the dock management, line haul system, route planning, etc., how well does Optim's routing software integrate with the other operational applications? My answer would be that we need through APIs, integration is not that hard. If we get sufficient support, in a matter of 3 to 6 months, we can integrate both the pickup and delivery side. And we did not face any challenges, though we have been integrating with AS400 as well. So that would not be any problem. One more question came. I work in the perishable industry. Is the system able to identify fresh versus frozen freight and assign the proper equipment? Answer is yes. We have deployed this application at frozen, I think Frozen Food Express, which have I think over 1,000 vehicles, and which have frozen plus non-frozen as well, and we have been able to create significant value over there as well. Webb would like to pick up some other questions.
Yeah, it's funny to me, as I look through the questions, about 15 of them have AI listed in it. And I would just want to caution everybody, it's so easy to kind of jump to how can AI, it's like this magic button that you can just push and it solves it all. Robert, starting with you, can you walk through kind of how you think about AI at Oak Harbor, and like how much of that are you looking for like Optum to kind of solve, and what roles is the software provider doing versus the way you're thinking about AI and getting the data to Optum or those types of things?
Yeah, wow, AI, that's a big question.
Sorry.
No, but again, you can think of AI as it's making everything quicker, and AI can definitely aid in the quality of decision making. The quality of decision making for dispatchers. For instance, in Route Max, dispatchers might be tempted to change a route, but Route Max has the ability to say, you can do this, but it's going to cost you an additional $50. Do you want to proceed? Now they might still do it, but now they do it with more information, right? They can now decide educationally that if that's exactly what they want to do. So AI has all these capabilities now. It can read a picture. It can read, imagine extracting the data from a bill of lading and automating the billing entry. That's huge. And that's one of the initiatives that we're trying to solve. And I know everybody's trying to solve that process because it's still a manual process in our industry, right? Automated scheduling, for instance, AI is just able to digest this massive amount of data to make a quality decision, maybe even better than a human capabilities, right? So this is what the AI, and this is how it could aid our ability to be more efficient and essentially cut costs and increase customer satisfaction.
Actually, there's a question in a related area. What is the biggest unsolved opportunity to reduce cost in LTL?
What was that question, Ravi? I'm sorry.
What is the biggest unsolved opportunity to reduce cost in LTL?
The biggest unsolved opportunity.
Basically, Woody, where can you cut the most costs? And since you volunteered, we'll let you go first.
Oh, let's see. What is the biggest unsolved opportunity?
Robbie, I'll take it while Woody's thinking.
Sure. Please go ahead.
Line haul, so part of it depends on what size of LTL company you're talking about, right? For the larger companies, and 44% of Estes' costs are line haul. Obviously, the truck driver driving is kind of static, but obviously the optimization of how you build and move the freight is the most significant cost in the space. But I'm not sure if it's the one that's most solvable. I think that's where P&D was so exciting. And boy, the Q&A questions just make me get nervous being president this year of a company. I mean, people are talking about all the weather things that are going on. Obviously, we've got a lot of government changes that are happening as of this week, and tariffs, and there's a whole lot of dynamics that are taking shape. I do think that one of the biggest areas, at least at Estes, is being able to find the efficiency on the busy days and on the slow days and how to manage that process. And that's where technology plays such a big role, because as humans, we're such a creature of habit. We do the same thing day in and day out. What's been fun for us with Optum is we've been able to lean in and find the efficiencies on the busy days and on the slow days. And that's important. But Woody, I don't know if you've thought of something.
Well, I appreciate that insight, Webb. I mean, for us, line haul and P&D, and of course our footprint's smaller, but P&D and line haul can go back and forth. It's the biggest cost bucket. But the interesting thing about it, I don't know if it's the biggest unsolved issue, but I know that on a line haul basis, it may not be. And what we've seen in our line haul planning is that there is little bits of savings perpetually, opportunities. It's like if you go back and look at it and re-optimize, there's always more money on the table. Okay. Now that can be balanced against, changes you're willing to do culturally, to your drivers and otherwise. Okay. There's other factors in there, but it's absolutely true that every day you could do something else and bring some savings. In P&D, gosh, not only the fluctuation like the weathers and embargoes we have to do and recovery from all those, but and I think Patrick hit on this earlier, just the routing differences between a Monday and a Friday, week in and week out, to optimize your network, to operate well. And that's a heck of a heuristic model, right? That just says everything needs to be relined up to do it again today in a good fashion. And our variable costs don't rise relative to volumes going up, and it doesn't drop relative to going down. But so optimizing the network ongoing is a really critical piece of success in this LTL space.
Actually, there's one more question. Have any of you organization moved to some sort of AI predictive routing? Actually, I can answer this question on everybody's behalf. So P&D has first deliveries and they have the pickups. Deliveries are very predictable. You know where to deliver how much freight. One question came, do you consider weight and volume? Answer is yes, we consider both. We match with the vehicle capacities, and there could be different type of vehicle with different capacities. We handle that as well. About the pickup, you need predictive routing because you do not know where the pickups are going to come from. So you want to delivery in the morning and position vehicles at places where the pickups will happen, so that pickups do not require a lot of deadhead movements. So we have a AI model, actually machine learning model, which predicts the pickups and positions and gets some anchor points, and we deliver freight in a manner so that when the deliveries are completed, then vehicles are positioned at the right places to facilitate efficient pickup. So we do have AI and machine learning predictive modeling in RouteMax. So Webb, you can pick up your favorite question now.
Well, with 4 minutes left, Ravi, there's a few. One that, Howard, to hear from you, one of the things about integrations, I think that was a Adui Powell question maybe, but the complexities of it. You want to talk briefly around, since we're using so many of Optum's products, kind of the synergies that have come from how we've aligned those integrations over multiple systems?
Yeah, good topic. 4 minutes, I'll be shorter, but yeah, good question. So Estes, we're integrating with an AS400 with our dispatch system, with our Optum RouteMax system, with our dock system, right? And obviously those are all different ones. So lots and lots of integrations going on there. As we move into the future or have less of those, Optum will replace several of those products, and we'll be able to reuse the same data. And so if I send Optum information about, once we make a pickup, for example, that data is in their system. They can use it for any of their other modules that they're building, whether it be the pickup, the live haul for line haul planning, et cetera. So a lot of reuse, right, which is something we love in the IT world and the business world, because it's typically cheaper for you, but not always. But so a lot of opportunities there. Clean data becomes critical. And again, this is where you talk about, okay, AI and unsolved problems. It's the ability to be flexible, really, where we need to get with our integrations too, so that we have systems, whether it be in LTL or any other industry, that if we need to share data across systems through these integrations, how can we do that in a flexible way when our customer tomorrow asks us for one more data point, and we don't want to spend a month to get them that one more data point, right? So we need to have a very, very flexible integration strategy that's loosely coupled, pub sub, topics. And again, I think that's where some of the AI stuff can help us with those things as well. If that helps a little bit.
Well, Ravi, I'll let you wrap us up, but I do want to say this. We had an unbelievable team here. Great job, all of you. Impressive what you've been able to accomplish. And I saw one person in here ask, when do all these efficiencies translate into lower costs in the trucking industry? And we weren't going to get into anything that's price related today, but I do think I appreciate all of you focused on how we can make a better experience for customers and find efficiencies, because we all win as a country when we're doing things efficiently. So I just want to say thanks to all of them. And Ravi, why don't you wrap us up?
Yes, thank you very much for joining us. We are going to summarize all the feedback in the form of a short presentation or a document we are going to share with you. We'll also share the video for a future reference. And Emily will have some final remarks for us. Emily?
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Robbie. It sounds like we need a part 2. So our audience, give us like a thumbs up or an emoji and let us know if we need a part 2. Looks like Robbie and Webb, we might have your work cut out for you if we do a second webinar. But for real, guys, this is all the time that we do have for today. Thank you so much to our panelists for sharing your insights with us today. As I mentioned before, we had so much interaction. We're just so grateful for your insights with us. As a reminder, the recording of this webinar will be sent tomorrow to everyone via the email you used to register with. And we hope you'll join us again for our next FreightWaves webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Have a good day.